Hey everybody, welcome back again to The Other Side Sports. My name is Robert J-Raz. Thanks for joining me. Recently, baseball has kind of taken a downturn as far as ratings and excitement goes. I know the commissioner is always looking for ways to improve the game, improve the experience for the fans. So I offer up one thing that I could offer, and that is ties. So ties in baseball is nothing new. In fact, it's been around for a while. People have often, suggested ties. And one of the things I was wondering is, what would ties actually look like? What would it end up being? So what I did was I went and took all the records, figured out all the extra inning games, converted all those into ties, subtracted all the wins and losses from the extra inning games. Something that's cool is that 17 teams, more than half of the league in MLB, has had at least 10 extra inning games this season. So why would ties be a good thing? So ties, I have a couple of reasons why I would just want to run down. First of all, it keeps the game at 9 innings. There would be no 16-inning games. And I think it's kind of fitting, too, because even the All-Star game this year went into extra innings. It's an interesting way of looking at it. It would add another level of strategy for the manager. Just like ties in soccer, you can gear a game plan towards holding a tie or, fighting back to try everything to get a tie, which is what you pretty much do in the ninth inning anyways. So it necessarily wouldn't change too much, but it would add just a little extra level of strategy. There's also the idea that now the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings will be a lot more exciting, knowing once the 9th inning hits, that is the final inning, and there will be no more. So it does kind of add a little bit of drama there at the end. Besides those couple things, I think also it could help with the overall injury factor of relief pitchers. Sometimes and oftentimes, in these extra inning games, relievers, you have to expend, the bullpen. You have to bring 6, 8 guys out from the bullpen to throw in the game, and necessarily that might not be the best thing for them moving forward in future games if they had to pitch on short rest. And so I think keeping it at 9 innings would allow the manager to pick and choose his pitchers, not get pitchers warmed up in the bullpen and ready to go into the game and then not using them. It could add a little element to that. Keep the relievers fresh, their arms a little more healthy and rested every day. So it could add that. But the main thing is that it would keep, if we ended with ties, I think it would ultimately allow the excitement of the playoff, especially the wild card slots. I think it would allow 1 or 2 more teams to be in the mix at the end of the season, which will obviously be more exciting for all the fans and all the teams that are involved. Whereas a prime example would be if you look at the Washington Nationals, right now, as of today, they are 1 game under 500. But if you take all the extra inning games out and make them ties, then they're actually 3 games over 500. So just by having ties, they actually have a better record now. So it's interesting to think about that in the long term, on the long stretch of the season, that a team like them or other teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates, Oakland A's would be a lot more in the race than they are currently. And, by the time middle of September rolls around, if you want to keep baseball as exciting to the most of the people involved watching it, having your team on the cusp of getting a wild card berth is pretty exciting. So that would be a way, I think, ultimately that ties could help the season. And I would like to show you guys what the actual tie chart looks like. So one of the things is, like I said, 17 teams have had 10 or more extra inning games. And if you really look at the standings, you'll see that it doesn't really change too much, and it's not a huge drastic change as far as the standings go. I mean, almost every single first place team is still in first place, minus the Philadelphia Phillies, who the Atlanta Braves now overtake. And it's still a close race, and even with the Nationals there, it's still close. So it doesn't really change too many aspects of the game. It doesn't change too much of the game. And ultimately, if you think about it, if the standings don't really change that much, then they're kind of wasting their innings. You're wasting at bats. You're wasting running around the bases. You're wasting arms, throwing pitches. It's a lot of unnecessary baseball, which is usually extra baseball, and people like that, and they say, oh, extra baseball, it's free baseball. But ultimately, it really is just unnecessary. And then if you get into like the 13th inning and you get a guy hit, you get to the weak link in the rotation, in the bullpen that day, he gives up 3 runs. So that's not very interesting. I mean, that's kind of almost unfair. You kind of didn't win the game. You just beat that one guy in extra innings. So ending in a tie, it would just speed things along, especially in the marathon of the season that baseball has. And it's a grueling season. It's months upon months, weeks upon weeks, days upon days. These guys in the bullpen, we've had, it seems almost like there's been almost a record amount of people hitting the DL now. And if you could try to keep those guys healthy, and ties could be the way to do that, then ultimately it's good for the fans, it's good for the teams, it's good for the players. So that's just what I just wanted to run down today. I find it very interesting. The tie chart's pretty cool to see what ends up happening, taken away, and that's one thing I want to see later in the year, to see whether or not these teams actually are, if there is more teams available for the wild card run towards the end of the season with the ties or not. So that's something I'm going to revisit later in the year. But ultimately, thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate it. You can subscribe to the channel. Tell me any comments, any concerns, anything you want me to talk about. If you disagree, I'd love to hear your side of it. You are a part of the other side too. And so I would love to hear and have an interaction with you guys. Again, thanks for coming along. Check out the website. Follow me on Twitter. And, talk to me. Hit me up. Leave me some comments. And, come back for the next episode. Thank you. And thanks for stopping by.